everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I am going to be starting another new cosplay project. You will see Aurora back there on the dress form behind me, but if you watched all the way through to the end of that Aurora video, you will know that I am waiting on fabrics to be able to finish Aurora. So while I'm waiting on fabrics for that, also the project I'm starting today, and also the Felicity Christmas ball gown, I am going to start the one thing that I actually have fabric for, and that is Peaches and Cream Barbie, but specifically her bodice, because I don't yet have any of the organza to make the whole rest of the ensemble. But I found this sequin fabric at Joann's. It is a sequin mesh, and the sequins are iridescent, and I just felt like it screamed Barbie. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what looks like this? Oh, the bodice from Peaches and Cream Barbie. Now this is some sort of like a textured plastic shell material that is not meant for human consumption. And also this bodice shape, not meant for human forms. So I am going to be tweaking this bodice pretty significantly to give it the overall look of the Peaches and Cream Barbie bodice, but to be, you know, for a plus size human. So what I'm actually planning to do is, now the original Peaches and Cream Barbie bodice, it is basically like a flat shell with big darts on the side. But again, not human, that's Barbie shaped. So I am going to use that princess seam bodice shape that I did for Aurora for Peaches and Cream Barbie. The one issue is that Aurora is built over an 1870s style corset, so it's a little like longer through the waist, and the shape of Peaches and Cream Barbie is really way more 1860s. Like we're talking total hourglass, short-waisted, etc. So I am still going to have to mock this up for one thing, because I am putting it on over a different corset that does slightly change my measurements. I mean, like if you go, you know, way back to my most popular video from December 2020, you will see how slightly my various corsetry does change my measurements. But yeah, it does do it a little bit, especially because the waist is shorter. That's probably the biggest thing. And I believe my bust winds up being a little bit larger and a little bit lower on the 1860s corset. So I think that that will be close and won't need too many tweaks. And then of course the other things are like strap placement is going to wind up changing, and the waistline of the bodice, like we're not going over the hips for this bodice. We are really stopping it like at the waist, because then the puffy organza skirt is going to get attached to the bodice at the waist and be puffy like directly from the waist. I am planning to build this over a hoop skirt just because I think that that is going to do a really good job of puffing the skirt. But again, I unfortunately can't start the skirt this week unless some sort of a miracle happens. There is one last fabric store that I have not been to in the Seattle area that does tend to have like prom dress type fabrics. So I think I'm going to check them out and see what the chances of them having the peach organza that I need. But otherwise, Kiralee is doing a reconnaissance mission for me this coming Friday in the LA Fabric District. So I would have to wait for if she can find anything and then if she can send anything. So that's why skirt is almost certainly not going to happen this week. The other thing that is coming in this week is actually a Peaches and Cream Barbie doll. I found one on eBay. First off, if you want to have an actual like doll, etc., you know, if you're making a doll cosplay, whether that be American Girl, Barbie, you know, I recommend looking on eBay or the secondhand market to see the value of the thing that you want to cosplay, because I didn't realize that Peaches and Cream Barbie is highly sought after. When I made Holiday Barbie, you can get a 1994 Holiday Barbie for like 20 bucks brand new in box. Peaches and Cream Barbie seems to come in two methods. One, pretty darn trashed for about $40 range, and two, brand new in box over $200. That was not going to be a thing. That's crazy. Also, I don't want it in the box. I want to be able to have it out, carry it with me, look at the clothes, take them off of her, put them back on, see how they're made, etc. So this was more my style. I found one that looks like it's actually in pretty good condition, even still has the belt, which is like unheard of if it's not new in box. And then I found a separate listing that had her ruffly stole that goes around her for really, really cheap. So the two of them together wound up being a little under 40, which I know is stupid for Barbie when I'm unemployed, but the things we do for cosplay, right? So that is coming this week. I think she should arrive by Thursday. The stole might be later, but we'll see exactly how it's all put together then. But again, I'm human, not Barbie, so I'm gonna have to make this for me. That means that one of the other things that I'm changing about this bodice is her bodice has these like tiny little mesh see-through tiny spaghetti straps. I don't like that. That's not my style, so I am going to be doing some sort of sleeve something. My plan is to ideally just do it out of like the same organza as the rest of everything and just kind of have it like semi-sheer and it will blend into the stole. So that's my plan on that. In any case, the first thing that I need to start with is the mock-up for the bodice. So I'm going to take the pattern that I did for Aurora, make my changes to figure out that strap sleeve shape, and try it on over the other corset and see how it works. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Well, I'm trying to draw out my pattern changes, but as you can see, someone has commandeered the situation. I can't keep a very steady hand on my pen when someone is constantly rubbing her face on my pen, and also someone is sitting on the pattern. Dora, what do you have to say for yourself? Don't grab the camera. Oh my goodness. Dora. That's not for cats. Not for cats. So I swear this corset is not that much smaller than my other corset, and yet you might notice some issues here. I don't even know if you can tell just how humongous this is. Like, what happened? So clearly I have a lot of tweaks that need to happen because this is nowhere close to fitting. So I took in the back pretty significantly. Like I actually took 1 full inch out of the top and then tapered it down to 1/2 inch by the time it kind of got to like mid back. So the back is fitting a lot better now when I pull up my little ribbon straps, because otherwise it just feels like it just kind of falls even though it fits. But I think that's a matter of like corset versus not corseted area. By the way, I don't remember if I mentioned in the Aurora video, but with both Aurora and with this, I am wearing a bra with my corset because for a full day at con, that is just more comfortable to me. So since these are cosplays and not actually historical, that is what I'm doing. I also tapered out, like I undid this seam to, I think, around the bust point and tried to kind of repin it out. And I tried to do the same on this one, but it just wound up complete not working. Like, it's awful. It's still, like, you can see this ripple here, and I think part of that is because it's on the bias, but I think the other part of it is because this is just too far out. Like, it needs to be up more because we're not going into a strap. So I'm actually thinking of pulling out Aurora Bodice mock-up 1-ish, 1.7-ish, I don't know, and changing this to be like this shape and trying it on with this instead, because this had this other bust princess seam and I think it might work. We are so much closer now. So obviously I have the old Aurora 1.7 or whatever version over here. The one thing that well, I guess there's two things that I did notice after I put it on. I did obviously cut off what was Aurora, like the strap and the hip and everything. But what I've also done here is I've pinned out a little bit of the side front because I put it on, and I think this corset, because the bust is definitely bigger in this corset, I get a lot more of a difference between like bust point and up here than I do in the 1870s corset. So I'm pinning out even more over here. So I've actually pinned out probably at least 1.25 inches right here from the side front, but that's bringing it in pretty nice and close here. This is also about 1/2 inch higher than this, especially like at the center front, it's literally 1/2 inch higher. I'm not sure. No, I guess it's about the same by the time it gets to here. But I'm realizing that I think I need it to be even higher. I mean, ideally, I would love to be able to wear this camisole underneath the bodice. I do have other camisoles that are a little bit lower, but this one does a really good job of like, I don't know, just this is a Shapermint camisole, so it just does a little bit more, I guess, than like my cotton camisoles. But yeah, so I think I want to raise this up just a little bit. I mean, I know Barbie's was like cut down to there, but again, I'm not Barbie. I also have pinned out a little bit on the side because it was still just kind of like gapping both kind of in the back, side, front, etc. And I think it's the side that needed that help. I think I probably need to bring the back up a little bit more too, we'll see. But yeah, I was worried at first because when I put this on, it still did that like curve in thing like Aurora did, but pinning this out actually helps that. So I think this is the right one here. I'm probably going to recut to get it higher and see if that works, and if it does, then we're a go, and I can cut out the taffeta fabric that is like the interlining. So I'm flatlining all these, but it is going to be sequin mesh, poly taffeta, cotton, Kona cotton on the bottom, all flatlined together. So wish my serger luck with those sequins. I've made all my markings of like things to adjust, but I did just want to address really quickly the reason that I need to add so much up is because my bust does sit lower with this corset. Yes, I have a bra on, but the other corset pushed up my bra, whereas this corset does not. It just lets it sit where it normally is. So because of that, the whole bodice rides lower, and therefore I need more length added upwards than anywhere else if the waist and the bust are where the bodice were like when they were Aurora. Exciting news, the mailman just arrived with 2 packages for me. The first of which is Miss Peaches and Cream herself. And the second one from a separate seller was her stole. Here we go. There she is. Straight from, what, I think 1984? So this is really cool because now I can actually see what's going on. Again, I had looked at pictures online, so I kind of had a general idea. I am so excited that she has her belt with her. Like, that is a piece that, again, it's very rare to find on one that's not new in the box. Her hair has seen better days, but you know, she also has a rip in the front of her bodice. The bodice doesn't actually have that V there. It is supposed to go all the way together. But yeah, this is why I think that the sequin material is really going to do a pretty good job of replicating that look, because it really does look really, really similar to her very plasticky bodice. Now, one of the changes that I am fairly certain I am going to make, and I knew this from looking at pictures online, is that her outfit is not actually made of organza. It is made of a really soft, like, mesh tulle, like just really, really soft tulle. The thing is that when you look at like her stole and how it kind of is supposed to stick up around her, that works great on the scale of a Barbie when it is soft tulle, because if you have this and it's only 1 inch wide and you have it all gathered up, yes, that's going to stand up. But if I have this and it needs to be like a foot wide instead of 1 inch wide, in a soft tulle, first off, I'm not going to find a soft tulle at Joann's, or I honestly don't even know where to find this. It's practically chiffon. Like, that's how soft this mesh is. Frankly, it may be a meshy chiffon, like a really kind of open knit chiffon, but it's very soft. I would call it a soft like mesh, and that's not going to stand up on me. So organza is going to be much more comfortable to wear than a stiffer tulle, and it is going to have that body. So that is why I'm planning to do organza. The other thing about her skirt is that it's multiple layers, which I am planning to do the multiple layers, but, oh, and now I can see just how many layers, which is really fun. But hers is actually multiple colors as well. So basically what she has going on is, I think this is like tricot. I can never remember the name of this fabric, but it's a really kind of like soft lining fabric that has a little bit of stretch to it. And that is either an off-white or really, really pale pink, this base layer. So that's kind of her slip layer to make sure that things aren't completely sheer. And then she has an orange layer of tulle, kind of a soft orange, but it's just one straight layer. I would say it's probably cut as a circle, because that certainly looks fitted at her waist and then really wide at the bottom. So it's cut as a circle skirt. And then she has another one of those layers that is a gathered circle, and onto that, this one is kind of a pale peachy pink color, more pink than peach, I would say. But onto that is built the ruffles. So we have like just the base of that bottom layer right here, and then we have a ruffle layer out of more of the peachy pink, another ruffle layer out of orange, and then top it off again with the peachy pink. So we've got lots and lots of layers there, and it is 2 different colors, plus then we have that tricot base underneath, which is really a 3rd color. And then of course this is a 4th color around her waist. I'll still have to find that as well. And the stole is pretty similar. Like we've got, I think this is 2 layers folded. Like each layer is folded. I can't quite tell if the middle layer is, no, you know what? The middle layer I think is just a single. So we've got a middle layer of the orangey one, and then an outer layer that wraps all the way around. So it like folds over it. And that is that peachy pink one. And this is like a long piece that hers has snaps on it. I think one snap connects to the snap that is on the back of her bodice, and then the other snap connects to the stole. So you can kind of wrap it around her any way you really like. She did originally come with a little necklace, I think maybe a bracelet too. Oh, she does have her ring, which is pretty cool, but she had a necklace that matched that. And then I think she had like a headband or flower situation that matched her waist. I'll put a picture up here if I can find that information. But yeah, and then her straps on her bodice are made out of the same sort of peachy pink. So there we go. This is how low the back of her bodice is. Definitely not doing that. And then of course how just kind of exposed she is in general in this bodice. So that is why we're making alterations for human me. But let's go ahead and finish cutting out the second mock-up slash hopefully lining layer of the cotton. I have more exciting things to show you. I had to go out and run some errands earlier while I was like in the middle of, you know, cutting things out, and I took Barbie with me, and I decided, let me take the like half-hour trip up to another fabric store that is not Joann's and see what they have as far as this peaches and cream skirt fabrics now that I actually have the Barbie and I could take her along with me and compare and contrast. So I was going for organza like I mentioned. I did find some organza, but not like the exact right, because basically the organzas that they had wound up looking really shiny, so I needed something else to kind of mattify it. So let me show you all the layers here. It's a ridiculous amount of fabric. It's actually just over 40 yards of fabric, which might be completely overkill, but I'm actually a little worried that I didn't buy enough. So okay, first off, I did kind of like a circle skirt calculator for the base underskirt, and it was telling me that I would need about like 6 1/4 yards, which seems like a lot. So I got 6 1/4 yards of this light pink matte satin. I thought this was going to be a pretty good base. I was kind of aiming for like a taffeta, which they didn't have, but I think that this will work pretty well. And it wasn't that bad. It was like $7 a yard. So I think, to be honest, I might have been able to get it cheaper at Joann's. I'm not sure what Joann's prices on matte satin are now, but that's the one thing that might have been cheaper at Joann's. Then for the next layer, we have orange organza. So this is kind of that like slightly shimmery organza, and then that gets layered. I had to buy 2 different colors of it because they didn't have enough of the main color that I wanted. This was the main color that I wanted, and then this you can see is just slightly lighter, but I think in the layers it doesn't look that much lighter, I hope. So there is 6 1/2 yards of this, 4 yards of this, 10 1/2 yards of this. But basically it's going to be the orange then gets layered with the pink, and then gets layered, because this pink is still very like shiny, kind of, you know, shimmery looking. The pink actually gets layered with this tulle. So, okay, right now it looks very pink, but when it's one layer of each together, I'll show you what that looks like. And it looks pretty darn right. And the tulle does a lot to really look like the Barbie. So yeah, for like the stole and everything, it'll be these 3 layers together. For the skirt, it'll be the 4 layers together, and then the ruffles will be consisting out of all of these as well. And then I did also get 1 yard of this color, which was the closest color that I could find to her belt. So I think that that will work. It's pretty close. And the others together all look pretty close to her dress as well. So yeah, it's a freaking lot of yardage because these are built as circles instead of, you know, just like gathered rectangles, which would be so much easier. And it might be that I wind up making some of them as gathered rectangles because cutting this many circles on that many shifty fabrics sounds kind of like a nightmare. So we'll see how that goes. But now I have fabrics. If I make it to the skirt portion this week, great. If not, then that will be in like a few weeks because I am ideally going to be working on Felicity next week, assuming that the Felicity fabric comes, which I think it's supposed to come this week. So, okay, you will see all of these sorts of fabrics pretty soon, but let's get back to the bodice. I have here mock-up 2.0, so I made all of those changes that I told you about yesterday. I mean, it was like, you know, a few minutes ago for you, but I made all those changes and it's pretty close to perfect. I think the main thing that is happening right now is that the fabric is definitely coming up too far into my armpits. Now, I added the like allowance, I added a 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So I'm hoping that that is mostly what is happening there because I'm really not certain how I want to attach some sort of sleeve type object, but I don't like walking around like this. Basically, this is not what I do in public. It's apparently just what I do for you guys. So yeah, I want something that can like cover, ow, I just jammed the pin into my finger. So I want something that can cover my straps. I did obviously go a little bit too far out with the point here because I think you can see that like the highest part of this point is here where it really should be right on the seam. So I think probably what I'm gonna do is frankly just cut that down. I mean, yes, my camisole is showing right here, but I don't want to recut again because this is ideally going to be the lining. I don't want to recut again. So I don't know. I mean, again, this is my only camisole that comes this high. So if I wear a lower camisole, then it's not going to show anyway. But yeah, I think that I'd really just have to like cut this down a little bit where it's kind of wanting to fold down anyway. And then I'll figure out how to do some sort of a fake sleeve poof thing. I don't know if it's going to be something that is literally shaped like a sleeve and goes into the arm's eye. So I think basically I'm going to cut the bodice pieces, allowing that to happen to like, you know, be able to actually attach a sleeve down here to this fabric. So I don't think I'm really going to cut away the seam allowance yet. I can always just like shave that off of the final because frankly also this is going to be sequins and you know what, it's going to be sequins. Actually, I want it a little lower anyway. So I am going to cut some of that off because otherwise I'm going to be stabbed by sequins in my armpits and nobody likes being stabbed by sequins anywhere, but especially their armpits. So yeah, I will take some of that off. But other than that, I think we've got pretty good fit here. It looks nicely fitted. Like, I mean, there are some wrinkles that are randomly happening, but I don't really know how to avoid that. And I think it might be, again, because it's kind of coming up too high into the armpits and it's being like shoved back down, hopefully. But yeah, so I'm going to just zhuzh this a little and then cut out my 2 other layers, taffeta and the sequin fabric for the top. And then hopefully it will work to flatline them all together. I generally don't recommend putting sequins through the serger because your serger doesn't like that. These are definitely smaller sequins than I've worked with before. We'll see. I'll probably do a test piece to see if I can flatline all 3 together on the serger at once because I do like the idea of wrapping the edges of the sequins with serger thread because obviously that makes them slightly less pokey, but my serger might kill me with that idea. So what I might have to do is flatline like the taffeta and cotton layers together via the serger, encasing all of the edges so they don't fray. The sequins aren't going to fray, they're just going to fall off because it's a mesh-based fabric, so mesh doesn't fray, which is always nice. But yeah, if that happens, then basically what's going to happen is I will flatline the two actual fabric layers and then put the sequins on top and run it through on the machine, because a one needle, no blade situation works a lot better than a serger when you are talking about things that can potentially break needles like sequins. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna go get going on that. I cut some of this excess off. I think it's a lot better now. There might still be more that I have to cut down, but I'm gonna go ahead and just go with this for cutting out the other pieces. Then we'll determine what has to be cut down at that point when I put everything on, especially like when I figure out, you know, the sleeve situation. I did want to address one other thing, which is obviously as I've been fitting this mock-up, I have been having a seam down the center front. I am planning this for a back zip, so there's not going to be a seam in the outer two most layers. So basically I am going to cut those two with the front piece on the fold. I do have a seam here in the back as well. This just has a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but yeah, the front piece, this is going to get seamed together and then flatlined with the other two pieces, which will not have a seam down the center. Don't use a fabric scissors when cutting sequins. And apparently don't use a paper scissors either. It does not want to cut. My scissors are no longer cutting anything. Now these were old scissors to begin with, but I'm blaming the sequins. The first piece has been successfully serged, so knock on wood that the rest of them can be as well. This probably looks a little weird to you on this side, but basically the selvage edge of this is wibbly, and I figured since this is the seam allowance, it's going into a zipper area where I would really like as few sequins as possible. It's actually good to have less in there, so that's why I cut it kind of over. I just made sure none of them are larger than a 1/2. This is like just under 1/2. But yeah, actually the needle worked well. Again, knock on wood. I did try to make it so that the blade did not have to cut any sequins, because this is a really great way to just like completely dull your blade. And obviously your needle, but needles are slightly more replaceable. So, okay, first piece done. How many to go? I don't even remember at this point. I think 6 to go. So, crazy story. The last clip that you watched in this video, I think was from Thursday afternoon, I want to say, and not long after I got the call that I was needed up in Everett, which was at that day 2 hours away, and I needed to go sub in to the ensemble for Cinderella. That's why if you watched last week's video, you probably would have known that this already happened, but yeah, I actually wound up subbing into Cinderella the entire weekend. So today is now Sunday. It's about like probably 5 o'clock. Yep, just about 5 o'clock on Sunday. And I have spent most of the last several days not at home. I have spent it at the theater and only getting home late at night, that sort of thing. So at this point, this is what Barbie looks like. We have 3 pieces that are serged, and that's all I have had time for, and then the others still need to be cut out of the sequin fabric. Now my plan is, I know that I normally stop my videos on Sunday evenings, but my plan is that I am going to finish the bodice portion, as in finish cutting out the sequins, put all of them like flatlined together with the remaining pieces, remaining what, 4 pieces, and then assemble said pieces together, and ideally bind the neckline. That part I'm not sure about, but at least the assembly will happen this week before I cut this video off, because I was so sure I was gonna get so far in this project, and then yeah, understudying threw a little bit of a wrench in those plans. Next week I am switching to Felicity because I got Felicity fabric in the mail this week. So Barbie is going to come back after Felicity, just as a heads up. So it's going to be at least a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks at least, I'd say, before you wind up seeing more of Barbie. And then at some point I'll bring Aurora back as well. That's what happens when I'm working on 3 projects all at once. But yeah, that's just kind of your heads up. I will show you more of Barbie in the next clip. Well, it looks a little weird on top of Aurora, but there is the Barbie bodice. I have assembled all of the pieces together. I decided not to bind the top of this yet because I realized that I really need to put it on before I do any finishings. I need to make sure that, you know, it's fitting right and everything. So that's actually going to wait until even after the skirt is attached, but the skirt will be attached here. So this will get like kind of folded up at the bottom and then big puffy skirt underneath that. But yeah, I love the way it looks. I think it looks very kind of plasticky, which is just what I was going for, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised with how well this was able to press. Hopefully the inside seams won't give me any trouble. I will be wearing this over various undergarments including corsets, so I don't think it will be scratchy or anything, but yeah, I think it's just the way that I wanted it to look. So that is going to be it for me on Barbie this week. And again, it will be at least probably 2 to 3 weeks before you wind up seeing Barbie again, because I am going to be switching over to Felicity for next week's vlog. So if you come back in a few weeks, you can see Barbie, but I think all of you are also really excited for Felicity. So hopefully you will be coming back next week to check out my Felicity project. But if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Mirage, and Laura. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!